to your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just some high-flying, ran-fast vertical stems of professors from Penn watching eagles eating prey like Pazookies on birthdays. It's Philadelphia. Marissa, Bo, and Zach kicking it. Cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some
Birds with Friends.
The early bird gets the worm but prefers getting turned like a turn on some
Birds with Friends.
Marissa, Bo, and Zach are here to squawk. Don't miss the mistress talk on some.
I don't call it the off season. I call it the non-playing season.
Is that what you say when people, normies ask you about what you do in the off season? You say it's not the off season, it's the non-playing season.
I don't correct them, but I'll call it the non-playing season.
Okay.
I'll feel like there's the playing season.
The NPO.
Season. Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends, the post-round 1 edition. It is 2:03 a.m. on Friday morning. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, Marissa Dunn here to talk about an explosive night for the Philadelphia Eagles. Marissa, first of all, how are you?
I'm doing great. I just got a little 30-minute nap in, ready to go. You seem like you're at your prime hour. Zach let out a nice yawn, but said he's ready to go. So excited for this pod.
Well, the tough news for Zach is that he has a radio hit at 8 in the morning.
Yes, he did make that very clear before we started.
There's a good chance we won't be done with the show by then.
I made it very clear I will not be awake at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Neither will I. Although actually I probably will be, and then I'll go back to sleep and take a nap after the kids have left. However, we got a lot to talk about. We've got Nolan Smith coming to Georgia just as predicted. We've got ya boy Jonathan Gannon being a very, very naughty little fella and getting his hand slapped by the league. We'll get to that. But we got to start, Zach, with the first pick of the night for the Eagles. At the top of the draft. Well, first of all, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bo. I love draft weekend, or what we call it draft weekend.
Listen to pods of the year, so we got to make it worth it for the people.
I woke up this morning so excited. I've been excited all week for this. I walked into the facility, pumped, thrilled. You guys looked at me like I had 4 eyes when I walked in.
Glasses.
Or I guess the expression is 3 eyes, right? But no, this was a fun night, and if I'm doing well, I can tell you this: the Eagles are probably doing much better. I need to imagine their hands are probably hurting from slapping 5 so much, because this night went exceedingly well for the Eagles, better than I think anyone could have anticipated. If you had told me they would have come out with Jalen Carter, I said that's a good night. If you would have told me that
we haven't gotten there yet, but okay.
You would have told me that they came out with Nolan Smith at 10. I'd say that's a decent pick. What do they do at 30? Yeah. If you told me that they came out with Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith,
and an upgrade in the 3rd round.
Yeah. So like Sheil always said when he did these post-draft pods, and he would lament about people who complained about grades, because of course this is all about what happens on the field. It's going to be determined by what happens on the field. But right now you evaluate process, and the process was really good tonight.
Well, we'll see about that. Let's get to it.
Okay.
The draft starts. Bryce Young goes first to the Carolina Panthers. The Houston Texans, much ado about not loving the quarterbacks. They take C.J. Stroud. Then they send a huge package to move up to number 3 to take Will Anderson. So there goes Will Anderson, who we would have thought was maybe the Eagles' primary trade-up target if he had fallen within range. They weren't going to beat that. You're laughing because I'm saying I'm going back.
That was the astute analysis.
5, they would have traded for him over Jalen Carter. You're kidding yourself.
I can't imagine both would have been there at 5, but I hear you. Okay.
What if the Texans weren't willing to send an insane package, and someone else goes there? Maybe the Cardinals just sit and take Paris Johnson. Then Anthony Richards goes off the board. Then I don't know. Maybe Seattle probably takes him, but they're in weird love with Devin Witherspoon. Who knows? Don't scoff at me.
There was no scoffing going on. Proceed with your monologue.
That was a scoff.
No, it was a callback to when you really went out on a ledge and said if Howie Roseman can get one guy,
and I was right. I was right. I'm sorry. What do you want me to say?
Anderson.
I'm not going to apologize for being correct.
Proceed. Yep.
Okay. So Devin Witherspoon goes 5. That was a long one where you thought maybe the Seahawks were going to trade out. We were thinking maybe the Eagles were moving up. James Palmer had reported on NFL Network that was one of the teams the Eagles were talking to the most. Weird that Seattle was fielding calls and yet decided they needed to stick for Devin Witherspoon, but a story for another day. Then the Cardinals do a very weird thing and give up a bunch of stuff, basically almost all of what they got to go back up and get Paris Johnson.
Well,
one of the worst, the worst run franchise in the league.
So I would actually go back to, so, I mean, do you want, is this all a preamble to get to the Eagles pick, or do you want me to chime in on what you said for each?
Oh, go ahead. You want to defend your boy Gannon again?
No. I understand what the Seahawks were. No, so if the Seahawks wanted Devin Witherspoon, my guess based on the way things unfolded would be that the Lions were going to take Witherspoon at 6. So if you want the player, what you're doing is you're evaluating the trade offer versus the outcome of the player. And my guess is they determined that the outcome of the player was better than the trade offer.
Yeah.
That's
fair. I think it's a bad choice.
Yeah. Okay. With the Cardinals trading up for
a small senior.
So you said the Cardinals gave up everything. You said the Cardinals gave up everything they got. They didn't give up that first round pick they got.
I know they did.
That was a pretty big part of the
I know
deal,
they didn't. I was obviously overstating it.
Okay.
But it's still a little crazy. And I think it's a good, I think if you want to know how much of a bumbling buffoon Monty Osenfort appears to be, not only does he get caught tampering on his first hire, but his very first draft, everybody in the league knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted to trade out and they wanted Paris Johnson. Like, how about a little bit of obfuscation year one, Monty? Loose lips in Arizona. Right?
I hear you there. Yeah.
Okay.
I hear you.
All right. So then Tyree Wilson goes at 7.
Real quick, and I don't mean to deviate, but if you were a GM, would you be like tight-lipped where you wouldn't say anything, or would you just spread a whole bunch of stuff so that like there's 30 rumors about your team? They want Paris Johnson, they want Anderson, they want a quarterback, because both strategies could be pretty interesting.
Well, here's the thing about they normally wouldn't take a running back this high, but here's the thing: you got to think about what Bijan Robinson can do in the passing game. He is actually a little bit more than just a running back.
Yeah, I think I would. Because if you choose the latter strategy, you're also making everyone you're telling it to very happy, right? Because they think they're getting this like exclusive premium information. So what you're doing is
because it's got to be information sharing, right? Like,
yes, exactly.
You got to give something to get something.
Yeah. So you tell each of the reporters.
So if you want to know who other people are doing, you got to tell them something, right?
Exactly. So the strategy would probably. Because you can plausibly say, "Oh, we're interested in this guy," right? You're not saying we're going to take him. And so someone writes, "I'm interested." I heard that Bo's team is interested in player X, and you have reports about 20 players, and no one knows which direction you're going. That's probably the better route than like having loose lips about everything, just saying everything,
right?
Than not saying anything at all. Yeah.
Well, listen, Howie Roseman is very good at this. He is very, very good at knowing like the pulse of the league. Right? He said the thing before about how the thing that keeps him up at night is that there's somebody available who he doesn't know about, but he's in good standing with the national information conglomerate, right? I think you can tell by the way that they moved up tonight that he had a good feel for what teams were thinking. The same at the end of the first round, which we can get to. I think one of his real strengths that is definitely true is that he does a good job like understanding what's going on, and also, he's playing this game of like we're interested in running backs every year as a joke. It's very funny, and you got to give him credit for that. It's a good bit. As someone who loves a bit, you got to respect it.
Also, there's no Howie swagger quite like the I just nailed a draft pick swagger. Like when he's walking off the podium, there's a little strut to the step, right? When he knows he nailed it.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was walking off today, and as he was walking off, I just wanted to ask, like, because he had mentioned that they were fielding calls at 30. I was like, were there a lot of calls? He goes, oh, there were a lot of calls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, I mean, there's on the scale of Howie swagger, the post I nailed it draft swagger is pretty high up there.
Probably
maybe
second.
Not as high as like post I won the Super Bowl swagger,
right?
But
or you've got a sign that says I forgive you, Howie swagger.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That's a good one. Okay. So I think at 8, this was it. Now we know how it ended up turning out, but I was a little bit surprised that the Eagles didn't move up to 8 for Jalen Carter, because Atlanta theoretically would know that they could still get Bijan Robinson at 10, right? So maybe that means the Eagles just knew that they were going to take Bijan Robinson. Maybe there weren't other bidders to move up for Jalen Carter.
I actually think the inverse is true.
Which is what?
I'm surprised the Falcons didn't trade down.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Well, you said you were surprised the Eagles didn't trade up, right?
Because I think that the Falcons would have taken
okay.
Not very much
Sure.
to just move back 2 spots so that they could still take Bijan Robinson anyway.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
But whatever. And that's because also James Palmer had reported that was the other team that they were talking to a lot in terms of moving up. So anyway, they end up sending the paltry price of a 4th round pick next year to move up 1 spot to take Jalen Carter. Your initial reaction when that happened, Zach?
Well, my initial reaction when it happened was they're doing this for Jalen Carter. I didn't think the price was prohibitive. I understand why you do it. I mean, you could call the Bears on their bluff, but the Bears could turn and trade that pick to someone else, right? So
yeah, that's what you're guarding against.
Exactly. So it's a move I would make. And are we getting into the Carter analysis, or are we just talking about
let's do it. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So look, the bottom line is this: he's one of the best players in the draft. If you had, I wrote this and
you asked him the question. It was a good question, and he gave you a good answer.
Yeah, I asked Howie if at the start of this process, like in earnest, not 6 months ago, but 3 months ago, did you think you would have had a shot at Jalen Carter? And he said no, right? He acknowledged why Jalen Carter was available when he was there.
It's a very good comment by Scott Goldberg on the live chat. The Eagles got a lot more value out of this 4th round pick to the Bears than they did to the last one.
Than Robert Quinn.
Right.
That's true. The Bears are just stockpiling Eagles sports. But like what I was gonna say is, if you told Howie on January 10th, or I'm just picking an arbitrary date in January, that you would have Jalen Carter on the morning of April 28th, he would probably answer, how many future firsts do I have to give up? Because at that point, you're thinking Jalen Carter is one of the top 3 picks in the draft. I mean, you saw what it cost the Panthers to go up to number 1. That's what it would have been for the Eagles to go up. You saw what the Texans gave up to get up to number 3 today.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it would have been for the Eagles to get to 1, 2, 3. Before the Bears made the trade, there was talk about Jalen Carter going number 1. It wasn't until I also, I don't want to, I mean, I'm being judicious with my words because I don't want to
I think
or undersell.
We're going to get to that in a second. Yeah. We're going to go over the whole thing. Okay.
But if not for that, I don't think this is even a possibility. I understand there were off-field questions about maturity and does he love football, things of that nature. But from like a pure football perspective, there's a consensus. This is either the best player in the draft or the second best player in the draft. But there's not but there's not a single person you'll talk to who would say that this was the 9th best player in the draft. And they drafted him number 9 overall. And it's a premium position. And it's a position with a short-term need. They lost Javon Hargrave, and a long-term need. Fletcher Cox presumably is in his last year here. So it's
that before.
Yeah, true. So like it checks every single box you could want. And I think we said that the two players who you would trade up for would be Anderson or Carter, right? Otherwise, you kind of stick and pick. So we'll discuss the off the field component here, but from a football perspective, this is a dream outcome for the Eagles.
Okay, I think let's talk now about the off field thing, because yes, he was non-quarterback, thought of as one of the two best players in the draft. There's a reason that 8 teams passed on him. 5 if you take away the teams who drafted a quarterback. Some of those teams, it's been reported, had him off their board completely. There are several layers to this. One is the incident that you referred to, and I'll read, just so I don't get anything wrong here, from what happened when they settled. Carter was charged with 2 misdemeanors on March 1st after a police investigation concluded that Carter had been racing the car driven by Georgia recruiting analyst Chandler LaCroix on the morning of January 15th. LaCroix's car crashed, resulting in her death and the death of passenger Devin Willock, a Georgia offensive lineman. Kim Stevens, Carter's attorney, released a lengthy statement Thursday, that sought to debunk false information that spread online and in the media, including that Carter had left the scene of the accident. Mr. Carter never left the scene of the accident without being told that he could leave. He stopped his car immediately after the accident occurred and ran toward the wrecked vehicle while his passenger called 911. After being informed that he could leave, Mr. Carter returned to the scene at the request of Athens-Clarke County Police Department to answer additional questions and continue to cooperate throughout the investigation. Jalen Carter's a police spokesman said on March 1st that Carter was interviewed on the scene. Jalen Carter's actions did not cause the tragic accident involving Chandler LaCroix, Devin Willock, Victoria Bowles, and Warren McClendon. If the investigation had determined otherwise, Mr. Carter would have been charged with far more serious offense of vehicular homicide and serious injury by vehicle under Georgia law, both felony offenses, and would have faced a lengthy prison sentence. So anyway, they settled. He was charged with these misdemeanors. That happened. We know. Then there was the Georgia Pro Day, when shortly thereafter he showed up overweight, out of shape. Then there's also the notion that he was not like a try-hard guy, took plays off, didn't practice very hard. Teammates had questions about him. I think you can probably infer that if there are teams who have him off their board, they probably heard some things from within the program. So you've got all of that. So this is not a surefire thing. That's the reason he was there at 9, right? From the Eagles' perspective, if we are judging the process, we can rest assured that they looked into this as much as they could. Like, this was a priority player for them to look into. Obviously, they would have had Dom DeSandro looking into it as much as possible. They had him in for a visit. They had, Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis to talk to about what he was like as a teammate. They've obviously got good relationships with the Georgia program. And so they made the bet, right? And I think you can say that, like, we don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, but if we are judging the process, it's not like, this is not a, and I don't mean to compare the things, but this is not like an Andre Dillard situation where it was like, oh, we didn't expect this guy to be here, let's jump. Like, they did their homework on Jalen Carter, and Howie Roseman talked about, it's on them now to foster the culture that's going to be able to get the most out of him. And I actually liked what he said about not leaning on Nakobe and Jordan. Like, they've got to worry about themselves. Like, it's not their job to bring this guy along. It's our job and the people in the building to help him, become the player that he can be. You're right.
You're correct about all of that. And like, I keep going back to this. It's baked into the price. The reason why he's like, you're drafting him where you are because of these reasons. They acknowledge that with every pick, what you're doing is you're considering range of outcomes, and the range of outcomes for the realistic range of outcomes. I should frame it for Carter is so much more than any other player you're going to get at that point, right? Like the chance of him being a top of the league player, the odds of that occurring is so much higher than I think anyone else you were going to get. So you're comparing it against your alternatives as well. Once Jalen Carter is there and you can plausibly get to that pick without surrendering significant assets to do so, it becomes a no-brainer to do it. I understand I
wouldn't call it a no-brainer. I think it takes a lot of work to decide whether you want him on the team.
But that work's already done, is my point. Right? Like you've already I think it's fairly binary. You're either saying yes or no to it,
right?
Right? Like you're not. I mean, to the point
you
made,
your point, but
it's not like a Laramie Tunsil situation where this happens hours before the draft, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, do we have the information? Do we feel comfortable doing this? If the report that came out, well, I'm sorry, I take that back. Not the report, because if the charges that came out the day of the combine, if they came out on draft day, it's an entirely different situation because you haven't had time to vet it. You haven't had time to gather and make that decision. This decision was already made. They had determined, okay, are we comfortable or are we not? And there's sliding scales, right? A team that's drafting 3 or 5, there's a different threshold because there's also
sure, and they weren't okay enough with him to trade up to get to 6 to get him, right? Like
yeah. Now that also might have been asset related too, right? Because you're surrendering.
Well, reading the board, but
sure. But to me, it's what you said about Andre Dillard. Right? They made this decision already. Once you decide you're comfortable drafting the player, then to me it's a no-brainer. If he's in this range and this is what it costs, are you willing to do it? And there's nothing. There were no alternatives at that point that I think would have been better.
Yeah, I also like the incident aside, and I don't want to brush aside the incident. The incident is a very major
tragic
thing.
It is tragic. Yes.
But I am also like a little bit uncomfortable with the talking around like the person, and it's like a part of the whole, draft big business of like, as Howie Roseman said, like these are 20-year-old kids. Like now, kids is unfair, but like the tenor of the conversation about like character concerns about guys makes me a little bit uneasy. But if it's a thing that you are worried about, you can understand why the Eagles think that they are in better position than other teams to handle it.
Sure.
Because of the Georgia guys, because they have in their mind fostered this locker room, right? And what's the point of having, leaders like Jalen Hurts if you can't ask them to bring a couple people along with him, right? So I think all of that makes sense. If you're talking like narratively, and I don't know that this ends up making a big difference, but like you'd probably rather have Jalen Carter bless you, Marissa, at 9 than at like 4, because he gets to carry this like chip on his shoulder into his career that like he slipped further than he should have. But also the Eagles traded up to get him, so they were interested in him. It's not like they just sat there and took him. I don't know. It's you can see why all of it makes sense to them, aside from this guy being on tape freaking awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it comes back to. If you're gonna miss, right? Don't miss with the bat on your shoulder. Like take the swing for the pitch that is there to hit. And that's how I view this. The player is an outlier here relative to what else you could do. And it's a different conversation, by the way. If you're sitting there, if the Eagles had the 3rd pick in the draft and Jalen Carter's that good, but Anderson's up there and he's a cleaner that's a different conversation.
And I also think it to that point, it brings in like the strength of the draft. Like if this was a draft where they thought that there were 8 guys who were difference-making players that they could have had maybe they had a slightly lower grade on a guy, but he was a cleaner prospect. They probably would have leaned that way. But as we talked about for the past 2 months, with a 10th overall pick, Howie Roseman wanted a guy who could be a franchise pillar. And if Jalen Carter is 80% of his upside, he's going to be really, really good for a really long time.
Yes, exactly. And that's the way I see it. Now, I'm not dismissing character. Like, character is extraordinarily important. I just don't
literally above your head. It says character counts.
There you go.
Do you want to share? Can I ask you to share what your brothers told you tonight?
No. It's just like the sentiment. Like, yeah, you care about character until it comes like for football players. Something like something along the. No, it's more. I can't accurately assess that. I think character at this stage, in the draft, it becomes a very nebulous term. Right? What is
that's the thing that makes me queasy is like like the Miles Murphy, like he said that he doesn't like two-a-days, so this guy's a
exactly or so there's I mean to me it's hey, are you a good player? Like that's the first part of this here, because I used to, and we'll get to Jonathan Gannon later. Jonathan Gannon had this thing where it's like the first qualification is do you love ball? Well, I love football, and you wouldn't draft me. So that's not the first qualification. The first qualification is, can you play, right? Can you be because talent is the ultimate.
I would draft you, Zach.
And like you're
kind of old.
Yeah, 37 now, right? I wrote this tonight, and this is applicable for this pick. Your risk tolerance is directly proportional to your talent. You are willing to take more risks for more talented players. So the first thing is you have to be darn good at football. All right. That's number one. But then from there, do you work hard? Do you have a desire? Like you want to get better? How do you fit within the framework of a team? Okay. And what are your habits? How are you every day? There are different things, but I also think that's something that you're not going to check every box in all those categories, right? So you have to say, what are you willing, like what's overstated, what's legitimate, and what are you willing to tolerate because the player is so good? And I do want to stress as I say this, I don't know. You hear things, you talk to people, but I don't know. And so all I can really assess is the player. Obviously the incident is a matter of, public record. But all the other stuff that could be gossip there. So I simply don't know.
Now, I just want to say on the player, I know that we have talked about the Georgia defense before. It's true that he never had more than 3 sacks in a season. He played 3 years. There is not a lot of precedent for guys with that limited production turning into all-pro or Pro Bowl defensive tackles. Chris Jones is the only guy who wasn't a nose tackle, who had that little sack production in college and ended up being an elite player. I do worry about it less with him than some other guys, especially Nolan Smith, who we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Because it is he's just so disruptive from what you see. But I just want to flag that.
Who was the last Georgia player under Kirby Smart to get double-digit sacks? Do you know?
I don't know. But the bar is not double-digit sacks.
Yeah,
the bar is more than 3. But
okay, yeah, but it's a reasonable answer.
Well, when's the last Kirby Smart defensive lineman to turn into an elite player in the NFL?
Here I'm just gonna say, because it's never happened under Kirby Smart. So
but who of those guys has turned into a Pro Bowler?
Well, Leonard Floyd, I believe, was the tail end of of it. I gotta look that up. Was he Mark Richt or was he Kirby
I don't
Smart?
know.
Okay. Let me look at some of those teams here real quick.
Okay.
As you go here.
Anyway, as you said before, if this guy is who they think he is on the field, it is the perfect fit. You made the point that I really liked the other day about Howie Roseman being sort of obsessed is maybe too strong a word, but focused on finding replacements for his pillar guys. And all of a sudden now you've got your Fletcher Cox replacement in theory in Jalen Carter. Obviously, we know that he can play next to Jordan Davis. We've already seen that. That's not a ton of projection. And for the way that they want to build this team, this is on the field the perfect player for what they have, because even if it was Will Anderson, then all of a sudden you're juggling Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick and where those guys are going to play. Right now, you can plug in Jalen Carter from day one, and all of a sudden the loss of Javon Hargrave doesn't seem so tough.
That's a good point. And there is Fletcher Cox to Jalen Carter's game. You hear that. You hear Ndamukong Suh. I think Bruce Feldman had a report where someone said he's the best defensive tackle he's scouted since Ndamukong Suh. So
he moves so fluidly, like he moves different than guys at that body size. It is impressive to watch. Okay, are you still looking up Kirby Smart?
Yeah. So Leonard Floyd. But that was
somebody tells us Floyd left UGA a year before Smart was named head coach.
So we'll shout out the 5 Georgia players drafted. Georgia's had 30 players who were drafted or were recruited by Kirby Smart over the past 5 draft cycles and 7 first-rounders. They're not counting the 2016 draft class since Smart never coached those players. So Leonard Floyd's not on that list. So yeah, it's actually not a great list of defensive linemen. Roquan Smith was okay. Roquan Smith, Lorenzo Carter, okay, are 2 there. There's DeAndre Walker. There's interesting here. Okay. Okay, so Azeez Ojulari.
Yeah, he's been good.
He's been good.
Yeah.
So, and then last year's guys, too early to say.
Yeah. Walker looks okay. Not the number 1 overall pick.
Fair.
But yeah. Okay.
Fair.
All right. So just to flag that as we barrel towards our next Georgia prospect later in the show. All right. Anything else you think on Jalen Carter?
So my 2 questions for you is A, would you have stuck at 10? Or is the 4th round pick such a small price that you're not willing to pay? And B, we kind of talked about how 7 was the most likely spot to trade up, right? That if he got past Seattle and he got past Detroit, what's the most you would have given up?
If I was good to go on Jalen Carter, what's the most I would have given up?
Yes.
I mean, it's obviously. It depends on who else was still on the board.
Let's say 7's the spot. So Paris Johnson was just taken. Yeah, Paris Johnson was just taken.
Okay, and so it's either going to be Jalen Carter or Christian Gonzalez, basically.
Based on your shadow.
Based on mine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I would have gone Nolan Smith over Christian Gonzalez.
I would probably have given up 62.
Okay.
But not to go to 7. I feel like that's too much to go up 3 spots, but I would have given that up if that was the guy that I wanted.
Probably. So it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think process and trade wise, they did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the future 4th is, I mean, it's nothing considering what they've got coming. So, yeah, as I've got the NFL Network replay on, and the Eagles have just picked Jalen Carter. What did you think of the Zoom the Zoom with Jalen Carter that led to a heated back and forth in the post night press conference?
So,
give us the newser on that.
Yeah. So, Reuben Frank, I did not think that Jalen Carter was contrite or showed contrition. Contrition is that? Am I?
That's a word, yeah.
No. Am I framing it correctly?
Yeah, I believe he used the word accountability.
Accountability. Okay.
That's tough to give in a Zoom press conference with reporters you just met. But
Howie and Nick took umbrage to
when they went to bat for their boy right away, which I respect.
So I mean, look, this is a rare situation that occurs. You don't usually have these kinds of questions. I do recognize, I see both sides of it in that, you're a reporter, you have to ask the questions. The flip side is this is a Zoom call after the guy was just drafted.
I think the question that Rube was trying to ask was a fine question. I think the way that he led into it made it sound like a much more of a like an editorializing gotcha.
Yeah. But so I mean, look, Rube's been doing this a long time. He doesn't need me to tell him how to do his job. Yeah, he's seen this. He knows what he's doing. So I mean, I'll never analyze another reporter's questions. But I tend to look at these post draft pick Zoom calls or conference calls as I've been there on draft night when you're talking to these guys. It's literally a car wash, a media car wash. Well,
it's not literally.
It's not literally. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's my 2:39 a.m. It's not. I didn't mean literally. It is a media car wash. They're going from
scoping these guys down.
They're going from person to person. Talk to Panini cards.
Well, we're gonna get to Panini. Yes, don't you worry.
Yeah. To do this press conference. Get on Sirius XM radio. Talk to this person from NFL Network. Talk to this person from ESPN. Talk to these out-of-town media. Talk to this website. By the way, this reporter flew in from Philly. Can you talk to them? And it's like they're not. They're just going through the motions. They just got drafted into the NFL. What they want more than anything at this hour is like to go celebrate with their friends and family, right? I understand they have professional obligations and they're fulfilling it. And we have a professional duty to ask certain things, but I can't speak for anyone else. Okay. So I'm not speaking for anyone else here. I can't ascertain much from a player in those settings. So I
think what Rube wanted to ask was that, like, he didn't want to get into it with us. Was he willing to be accountable about it with you guys?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I tend to ask in those ones, something that could like give me a little color or a little, something from the moment or the scene that is genuine. And then the next day, he'll be in. Well, today now it's 2:40 a.m. and we'll talk to him
halfway through the show, just so you know.
So you get him the next day. You get him at rookie camp. You get him mini camp, training camp. This won't be your only shot at him. So I think I'll have a better sense of Jalen after more exposure to him. But yeah.
Now, just to circle back, I do want to clarify this. Is it Jalen Carter or is it Carter Jalen?
Seriously? That's what you wanted to circle back to? All right. It's Jalen Carter. Proceed.
Thank you. Just to set that straight. All right. I think before we get to the Eagles' second first-round pick, I think now is the time for us to get into your naughty little boy and the news that broke before the game.
Please, can we call him by his name as opposed to whatever terminology you used? Yes.
Your naughty little boy?
Again, let's use the Uber Lyft threshold for this podcast. If someone walks into the Uber and the Lyft and says, "Let's talk about your naughty little boy," okay, I don't want to be associated with such a description. So let's talk about the former Eagles defensive coordinator, current Arizona Cardinals head coach. I think that is a more apt way to do this.
Okay, well, what happened with your naughty little former Eagles defensive coordinator?
So Jonathan Gannon,
Tisk.
He took a call. No, what happened is this. There was a tampering charge. The Arizona Cardinals self-reported a tampering charge. And the NFL.
No, they didn't they self-reported, but they didn't somebody found out about it and then they were forced to self-report.
Yes.
Right?
So essentially, so the Eagles and Cardinals reached an agreement here to make this not a non-issue. This came out right before the draft. No one knew such an investigation was occurring. The Eagles actually got real good compensation. They moved up.
Really?
30 spots in the third round
to get paid to get it. I mean, what a deal.
Yeah, they gave up a
the
pick
best
next
move
year.
They could have the best draft of all time, and that's still the best move of the offseason.
Yeah. So in a joint statement, here, let me pull this up here.
Joint statements are funny. It makes it sound like a divorce, right? Like a celebrity couple breaking up. Which I guess you could argue.
Let me pull this up. So here, and I'm just
Zach
gonna
Berman and Jonathan Gannon released joint statement. They've decided to no longer be best friends.
The Cardinals and the Eagles had a
after
settlement.
much consideration and long.
There was impermissible contact by Arizona this past January. They Monty Ossenfort, the general manager of the Cardinals, had a phone conversation with Jonathan Gannon in the days following the NFC Championship game, a period during which contact is not permitted under the league's anti-tampering policy. So then the clubs agreed to swap third rounders this year because the Eagles were drafting at the end of the third round and the Cardinals top of the third round. This is a pretty significant delta there.
Like 30 picks almost.
Yeah, and then the Cardinals get the Eagles' 5th round pick next year. So yeah, what's my read on this? My read on it is this, okay? You hear at the combine sometimes that the drug tests aren't like drug tests, they're intelligence tests sometimes, in that, you know, it's you're getting tested. Are you going to get caught? I imagine tampering goes on all the time. Okay. I imagine that, but you're clearly not very good at tampering if you get caught. So it's a pretty significant pick swap there. I don't know the nature of this call. I don't think that this is an excuse. I know this has come up. I don't think this is an excuse for
no.
Because please let me finish here. Please let me finish. I don't think this is an excuse for the Super Bowl. But what I will say is this: a phone call takes. Are you frozen on the screen, or are you just really?
No, because you have to say what happened in the press conference.
Oh, okay. Okay. So then, Howie didn't want to get into it when he was asked for the details of it. He said that's a league issue. And so then I asked Nick, what was your reaction to Gannon and the Cardinals? And Nick,
it was a very open-ended. Like what was your reaction? And he's like, "Oh, is this a gotcha question?"
Yeah,
but then
Nick thought I was trying to bait him.
Yeah.
Which like literally, what I asked me baiting him would be if I gave like my opinion of it to lead him into the question. That's literally begging the question. All I did was open the floor. What is your reaction to this? And he suggested that I was baiting him to try to say that Gannon wasn't paying attention, or
he
wasn't
got very defensive. He said, "Let me tell you this. I don't think there's any part of him. He was all the way in. He gave us everything he had in the Super Bowl. I don't think there was any kind of distraction." Which is like, that means that it's crossed his mind, right? Like,
yeah. Look,
I like to imagine when it first came out, I was hoping that it was a little bit more scandalous, like during the week of the Super Bowl in Arizona, like Dom had put like a tracking device on Jonathan Gannon's car, and he's like going out to dinner with the Bidwells late at night, like a little bit more scandalous. And instead, it's just Monty doesn't really know what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that if you're party to these press conferences sometimes at the Super Bowl, if you're partying to media night, let's say, there are far less substantive. Like there are much more time wasting, time sucking things that deviate you from your
Septum.
game preparation than a phone call with another GM, which happens. People in the league talk all the time. They talk to other coaches, other executives. They talk to media. They talk to players. Like that's just the nature of it. But I'll say that it takes a phone calls. It's two-party consent, if you will, right? So it's not just
Are you turning on your boy?
There's no turning.
Is this the final straw?
Bo, please.
Is this the straw that broke the camel's back?
Bo, respectfully, I know you're doing a bit, but I would like to think that my integrity, my journalistic integrity, is unimpeachable. Okay, so
no,
so I
character
will,
counts except when it comes to the players and the defensive coordinators.
No, so I will always I think I was when Gannon was at fault for things, I would acknowledge it accordingly. What I don't do,
that's debatable.
What I don't do, I don't just say something because it's what the fans think. I try to have independent.
Truth is,
no, I have independent thoughts, and I don't need to build my opinion based on groupthink. Okay, so but in this case, I'll say this: this is two-party consent, right? It's not just the Cardinals making the call; it's Jonathan Gannon accepting it and talking, and doing it, and he knows the rules. He knows when he's allowed to be interviewed and not. So I think this is both sides here.
You also have to acknowledge, as Jeff McClain tweeted out, he lied about this. He was asked directly about whether he had been in contact with the Cardinals, and he said he lied. He said no.
Well, yeah,
so
because
if we're talking about character, he's just lying.
Well, if let me tell you this, if you broke the rules, are you telling the media? That's my point.
Now all of a sudden character it's not about what happens.
No, I'm not saying I'm just saying it's
He said he had no idea that the Cardinals were interested until Howie told him.
Yeah, we all know that.
Super Bowl.
We all know that was ridiculous. Literally, the Sunday morning shows were talking about the Cardinals zeroed in on Jonathan Gannon.
So
the
he's
Sunday
allowed
morning
to
shows
just lie?
of the Super Bowl. No, is this news to you? When he said that, did you really think that the first time he knew the Cardinals were interested?
But how does that square with all of your other principles?
I just take that coaches and players lie to me all the time, right? Howie Roseman said the other day that he doesn't tell his draft plans to anybody, right? I mean, I can go on with what the players, every time a player says that they've never thought about their contract, I'll think about my contract during the offseason, right? Everyone thinks about their contract. So I know that sometimes what you say now, if you don't want, I mean, there's a way to answer it. Be like, I don't want to get into that, or you can talk around it. You don't have to, and maybe you're playing semantics, right? Maybe the first time
as you've said, omission is not lying, right?
Did I say that on the podcast? I don't think I said that on the podcast.
It's a thing.
Yeah, Bo, we don't need to get into that on the podcast. Okay. So I gotta go back. And,
all of a sudden, it rears its ugly head again.
Please do not joke about that. That's not something to joke about here. Point being that Jonathan's at fault for this too. And I don't think this is why Patrick Mahomes did what he did in the Super Bowl. Like if Jonathan Gannon didn't talk to Monty Ossenfort for X amount of minutes, the Eagles it wouldn't have had.
So that was more about him just not being as good of a defensive coordinator as some people thought.
Yeah, or that has something to do with Patrick Mahomes being a damn good quarterback too. right?
Okay.
I mean, let's acknowledge that. But yeah, I don't. But Jonathan knew what he was doing, and he got caught with his hands in the cookie jar, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we move now to the second half of the first round. And because the Eagles had that extra or that bumped up elevated third round pick as a result of the Gannon tampering, you started to wonder if maybe they'd be thinking about moving up, because we knew that Nolan Smith is a player that they were interested in at 10 potentially. All of a sudden the board starts breaking. The Commanders make a terrible pick. Emmanuel Forbes, your boy.
That's not a terrible pick.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, on a night when the Lions took Jahmyr Gibbs at 12, Jack Campbell at 18, a bunch of other questionable picks, Emmanuel Forbes at 16 is the worst pick of the night.
Your Emmanuel Forbes thing is like, sure, he intercepts passes and breaks up passes at an elite rate, but he's 17 pounds lighter than your prototype. So therefore,
17 pounds is a lot of pounds.
Do you
He's
watch
also
when you watch him play?
I watched him play, and I thought that he was one of the worst corners I've ever seen.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his interceptions were guys just dropping balls right into his lap.
Which
he's going to be bad.
Wait, was it the 12th, the 11th? It was the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, or the 14th? Like, I'm curious.
He made one really nice play. One.
Your boy, Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Went 3 years without catching another quarterback's pass. Emmanuel Forbes, he had Emmanuel Forbes.
Let's make a bet tonight.
Wait. No, I just want to give this stat for you. Emmanuel Forbes returned more interceptions for touchdowns than Christian Gonzalez and Joey Porter have interceptions combined. Okay.
If Emmanuel Forbes goes to a Pro Bowl, I will.
He can cover.
He can
cover. He has ball skills.
He can't cover.
He can cover. What he can't do.
And he can't tackle.
Well, he can't. Yeah. He's not a great tackler. Okay. I will grant you that. But you know what you are? You're the guy who
to take him at 16 to not even move around. Like that's really bad. What can we bet on here on Emmanuel Forbes? I think we need to go on the record here. Let's put some.
I'm not saying I'm not saying he's gonna be a Pro Bowl player. I'm saying if
he ever makes a Pro Bowl, I will give $500 to your favorite charity.
Really?
If out of the league within 6 years, then you will do the same for me.
I mean, 500. I would really have to look at the data of like how. I mean, 6 players don't usually. First round picks don't get 6 year, and there could be injury. Like he could.
You're telling me this guy's elite. You don't feel good enough about the 16th overall pick that he's going to last in the league for 6 years?
Oh, he could tear his Achilles in the first practice and be done.
Okay,
right? Like so I'm not. I would need to look at more data to answer that question. But
come on, go on the line.
Look at Bo walking in $500. His betting threshold is he's pulling up.
Yeah, but in future money. So it's
what?
Like,
I bet MGMs are. I was about to say a different place. I shouldn't say that. Bo just randomly pulls up bet MGMs, putting $500 down on props. Let's see. I can't do 6 years in the league. How many players make it? Because how many players make it 6 years in the league?
16th overall picks should absolutely. You're telling me it's a good pick. If it's a good pick, he should be in the league for 6 years.
I said he's a good player. I wouldn't have taken him 16th overall, but I think he's a good player. You have such a distaste for him because he's 17 pounds below your prototype.
That is so many pounds.
Okay. You know what? 14 interceptions is so many interceptions.
No, not the ones I've seen.
6 pick sixes are so many pick sixes.
No.
He's
UGLY. He ain't got no alibi.
I will agree to a bet with you, but I mean the 6-year threshold. I need to look at.
Okay, what do you propose? What's a good?
Like Polar Jam saying live a little. Polar Jam, do you just go in and throw $500 down on something that you
think about inflation? 6 years from now, $500 is going to be like $40.
I don't think you understand inflation, Bo. That's like the Seinfeld episode where Kramer talked about write-offs, right? And Jerry's like, "Do you know what a write-off
Imagine
is?"
him lining up across from AJ Brown. How do you think that's going to go?
How do I think that's going to go?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes he's. I mean, if he has to tackle AJ Brown, not very good. But if the ball doesn't get to AJ Brown, that's.
You think he's going to stop that? Yeah. Okay. What are you going to do? What's your proposal? What's your rebuttal?
What's my rebuttal for what?
For charity, as Corey Katz says.
I understand it's for charity.
I thought you had a good heart. I don't know.
I will make a bet with you. The 6-year threshold is so I don't know where that's coming from.
But that seems like that seems like a reason, because it's going to be objective anyway. So we're not going to go off Bo Football Focus grades. We're not going to what do you want to do? I think that's a pretty reasonable. I think if he's not in the league 6 years from now, that's a good indication that it was a bad pick. That means I was right.
I think if he starts 50 games in the NFL.
No, you're talking about, that's like your side of the thing. That's Pro Bowl. So you're saying if he starts fewer than 50 games, I win?
Yes.
Okay.
And if he starts 50 games, because 50 games would be,
that's 3 seasons plus. No, 17. So that's actually 3 full seasons. I don't know if that's good enough for me, because Washington might just run him out there. Although I don't think he's going to start 50 games.
Yeah, I'll do. I think 50. I mean, 50 games is pretty aggressive. There's a lot of because the thing with me is like,
I don't think he's going to start 50 games.
Okay, but let's say this. Okay, it can't be a career-ending injury. It has to be performance related. The bet is I
don't know. No, because part of the deal is this guy.
The bet is void.
No, because what if he gets a career-ending injury because he got run over by AJ Brown and he's 100 pounds? Like, that's part of the problem.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, a guy, if a player tears his Achilles in the first practice, then their chances of starting 20 games in their career is significantly lower. So I'm absorbing so much more risk than you are here.
You're the one who loves the guy.
All right, let's get to Nolan Smith, okay? Let's revisit. We have a whole summer to revisit Emmanuel Forbes.
No, we need to make the terms of the bet tonight. It needs to be a draft night bet. Marissa, what do you think?
I mean, I think something for charity, I'm all for, but I do think you got to give Zach a little time to maybe think this through.
Oh, come on.
But who would you rather have?
I think 50 games is fair. I mean, say to start, like he has to start 50 games. That's a lot of games.
That's a lot of games.
Yes. So I would say that's a fair wager.
All right. How about 52 games?
If you put in the injury clause, then yeah.
The injury clause. I don't know. I think the injury clause has to be part. It does not have to be part of it.
Okay, well then I will gladly make a generous donation to a charity of your choice, but this particular bet,
How about I'll let you carve out. I'll let you carve out 2 injury types. Okay, so if you want Achilles, you can have Achilles, and then you can carve out 1 other injury type. Otherwise, anything else counts for me.
Let's discuss it off air too, because we do have something in our contracts about betting on football. I want to be very careful that we're not violating.
No, this is
like
for
that.
charity,
Okay.
and it's not.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. I'll give. Okay. I get to.
You get the Achilles, and you can call.
Here, let's just. Yeah. Here. How about this? Let's say a non-contact injury.
No.
All right. Let's get on the Nolan Smith file.
No, we gotta hammer this out before we move on.
Oh, it is.
I'm holding you hostage.
Zach, my back's starting to hurt. You need to just agree to something.
All right, 50 games.
52.
52.
So 52, and I get 2 injuries. What you say?
Yeah, you get Achilles.
I think they should be able to be blanket injuries.
Okay, fine.
Like if you're making Zach go up to 52.
But all right. We can be subjective with the injuries, but you can't hold on to if he tears his Achilles in year 4, but he's only started 5 games. Like,
okay,
it has to materially affect the arc of his career.
What about a second contract? Quinn says in the chat.
Yeah, but in Bo's defense, like first round picks often get that 1 year show me contract that some other guys get. So
Greedy Williams was second round pick, but
yeah.
All right, we have a deal.
Sure.
Do you want to make the price less, or you're okay with the charity?
I like the charity component of it. Yeah, I like the charity component of it.
All right. On
I just has to make up 1 Pro Bowl.
Oh no!
We're removing the Pro Bowl. It's just the 52 games. It's just the starting whether he starts 52 games or not.
Okay.
Yes. I
think that's it. Okay, I feel good about that. On Friday, April 28th, the year of our Lord 2023, 3:04 a.m. Bo Wulf and Zach Berman have come to terms.
I still feel uncomfortable. I still feel uncomfortable having a. Okay, we don't need to get onto it on there. We'll discuss it off air. Well, yeah, I just don't want anything that.
I don't think it's a bet.
If anybody comes to talk to us, this was just for content's sake.
Okay, yes.
It's more of a prediction. It's more of a
Okay.
Draft night prediction, I would say.
Okay.
I look at it like that.
Okay. So
Nolan
anyway,
Smith.
After the Commanders flushed their first round pick down the toilet, some other people came off the board. You start to wonder, are the Eagles maybe going to move up for Nolan Smith? And they don't. They go on the clock at 30. And I was sort of wondering, because they didn't move up for him, you would have thought that if this guy really was in consideration for them at number 10, that you would have moved up to get him, because you would think that would be worth it. But maybe this is just credit to understanding what other teams around them were looking for. Maybe you wanted to see what kind of offers would be coming in at 30 in case there was some kind of Godfather offer. But they fielded those calls. They stuck at 30, and they take Nolan Smith, the real outlier of a prospect from Georgia. Unbelievably athletic for his size, but he's also undersized. And he, too, was not super productive in terms of sacks at Georgia. What's your read on Nolan Smith, Zach? You think it would have been a fine pick at 10?
Yeah, I really like Nolan Smith. I like Nolan Smith because for a few reasons here. Number one, because we use the term unique, all right? And it gets thrown around often, but he is unique in that you can't find anyone else who plays his position, who runs a 4.38 and has a 40+ inch vertical leap like that, or 4.39 rather. That doesn't exist. He is unique in that regard. I think that when you watch him play, he has ability that like I thought Fran did a really good job when he was talking to you on the pod that day. He doesn't play like he's 238 pounds. He is on the lighter side, but he's tough against the run. I understand what you mean by the pass rate by the sack production. That said, the Eagles are a data inclined organization, as we've discussed. If you look at advanced numbers, his sack rate, which isn't even that advanced, right? You just take sacks divided by pass rushes, right? You look at his pressure rate.
I don't like college pressure rate.
Okay.
I don't like NFL pressure rate either, but college pressure rate is even more subjective. anyway. There's
Sure,
also
but it-
there's
but
also
it
a
is
selection
staying-
bias.
yeah,
But there's
yeah.
also a selection bias issue with a guy who is only pass rushing occasionally on a defense that good, because when he does pass rush, he's going to have good
He's
opportunities
clean.
to get after
Sure.
the quarterback, right?
Okay.
But
Yeah, I mean his sack rate though, his sack rate is
pretty good.
really high.
It's fine.
He had 3 sacks this year in 8 games. He missed 6 games. You do wonder if he played those 6 games, what that looks like, right? Are we talking if he has 6 sacks or 7 sacks, is the conversation different? And I just think that the name that the Hassan Reddick comp gets thrown out a lot. I think, and I know this is pretty bold to say this, like Micah Parsons is someone to look at. Teams are trying to look for that type of player, and there is some Micah Parsons in his game. I think he's a really good player at a position, or has a real, I should say, high upside player. I think they're traits that are worth gambling on. I thought that at 10, I've said this on this pod a number of times. In the first round in particular, I feel very strongly about traits. I get hard to find traits in the first round. And then later on in the draft, you can steer more toward like this guy can play, focus more on what he can do than what he can't do. But take hard to find traits unless they're Devontae Smith and they're just so good at football, you can't pass on it. And Devontae had other stuff beyond, the weight. But he, to me, has traits that are worth gambling on. I don't know him, but the character is said to be really high, off the charts. Yeah.
Awesome.
The exposure at the combine showed
Kobe
that
Dean was there with him at his draft party at his house.
Pedigreed player, former top recruit, right? 4-year contributor, 2-year starter.
K. I know you love that.
And this is another thing too, okay? Because I keep hearing. Well, I shouldn't say
the Jets
I
taking
I
Will
hear it
McDonald
tonight.
at 15. That was a bad pick. Anyway, go ahead.
I've heard. Well, is he a workout warrior, like that kind of thing? Well, here, let me frame it this way. In Dane Brugler's way too early mock draft last April, which doesn't have any of the combine data or anything like that. It's based on the player evaluation then going into the year. Nolan Smith was mocked at number 11 in that draft. So this is a guy who has been on the NFL's radar now for a long time. So to me, it would have been a good pick at 10. It's a great pick at 30.
I'll just run through some of those outliers, both in terms of the testing and the production. So he ran a 4.39 40-yard dash. Made him the heaviest player in combine history to break 4.4. There are 46 players in the elite sample of edge guys, which is more than any other position because of the silly rules about edge eligibility. So you have a bigger sample. It's obviously the fastest 40. It is the fastest 10-yard split. It's the second best vertical jump, 41.5 inches.
Well, so if I can jump in real quick, because
Sure.
I've seen that stat, and I actually think the stat is it's the heaviest player to run under 4.4 and have over 40-inch vertical jump, because Amare Barno last year ran like a 4.35 or something at 246 pounds.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's what it was. I think the high jump was tied into it. Yeah.
He is so at 238, he's 1 pound heavier than Hassan Reddick was, and 2 pounds heavier than Cam Wake was. So that's good. He's got relatively small hands, but what can you do? Get him a Burger King. But he only had his high sack was 3.5 2 years ago. Last year, as you said, he had 3 in 8 games, and you would think that he would have topped that. But the elite edge rushers, the only guy who played 4 years and had fewer sacks is Michael Bennett, and Michael Bennett went undrafted. There's all the things about the defense. There's all the things about the way he was used. He didn't get to rush the passer that often. He got injured, tore his pec, and he's fine on that, Howie Roseman said. But it is true that he didn't have a ton of sack production. I think it's a really, really good pick at 30. I would not have liked it at 10, because of all those questions, I would have wanted to move down for that cost. But at 30, I mean, you can't argue at all. And
but you did say of the edge rushers that we were talking about there, you thought Nolan was the guy the Eagles would go for over Van Ness and some
I thought I wouldn't have liked it, but okay. I would have not have been surprised if I think that the Eagles, if they had to hold their nose and pick a 10, I think that is who they would have taken.
I would think
if they didn't like Christian Gonzalez. It's going to be an interesting fit. I'm like curious to see how they use him and Hassan Reddick at the same time. Is it going to be like they're just splitting time? One of them's on the field at the same time. Obviously, they're going to have to be packages where they can use both of them. It's nice that he can probably do the dropping in coverage better than Hassan Reddick, or at least like allow Hassan Reddick to not have to do that. I think it will be fun to watch how this all works in the Sean Desai defense as they put this thing together. Howie Roseman, I asked him what position. He said outside linebacker. I think it's fun. There's like the skeptical part of me is like, okay, we're getting a little too cute here. Is it really the best player is always going to be the guy from Georgia? But sitting there at 30.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Well, I know, but it's not like, that's not the case. But I mean, I would like to, I'd like to hem and haw here, but it's really hard to argue with taking him there. And as I'm doing the shout out draft, that's who I had them. That's who I would have picked. I would have picked too. So,
I mean, like Georgia won the national championship game 65-7. They're just absurd. But to the point, and I said this in the media house tonight, and I wrote this, like, whatever happened to I'm sorry, Marissa, I see you yawning. I apologize. And we're doing this again.
I'm good.
Whatever happened to the days when the Eagles were being too cute? Like, everyone thinks Justin Jefferson, but we know better. We're going to take Jalen Reagor.
Yeah.
Or everyone knows this, but
I think that was maybe I think the Reagor thing might have been something that taught them that lesson a little bit.
Yeah, like they're these almost consensus-based picks. Maybe there's something to it, right? And
I remember asking Howie about it last year, about having done the Alabama after the national championship game and then the Georgia after the national championship, and he said, like the longer you do this, the more you realize that maybe it's not so complicated, and I think there's a little bit of luck involved here. Like, the board has fallen a certain way. They have also moved around to get in position for those things. I don't necessarily know that the Jordan Davis pick is going to look great, but I do think that is a philosophical decision that they have made to await that maybe more than they did before.
Yeah, and I think college football has become even more so than ever before. The best players go to a few schools, and if you just look, Ari Wasserman from The Athletic, he has this thing, Stars Matter, and if you look at the recruiting rankings every year, it's the same 5 schools at the top, basically, right? If you look at the draft, Nolan Smith was the top recruit in the country. Now, Jordan Davis wasn't a huge recruit. Jalen Carter was a huge recruit. Bryce Young, the number 1 pick, was the top quarterback in the country. Sometimes the players, the best players get to choose where they go. They go to the best schools. Georgia's won 2 national championships. A few teams have hung with them during the past 2 years. It's been with the strength of their defense. There's a reason why. There's a reason why the best players are on their team, right? So I'm not saying, I'm not saying you take Chris Smith and like every single player who was on Georgia's defense, but these guys were their best players.
I do want to allow for the possibility that the reason that Jalen Carter didn't try so hard in practice is because he didn't really like his teammates. He's like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to get to the NFL so Nolan Smith isn't bugging me with his rah-rah attitude, and Nakobe Dean isn't trying to like get me to do extra stuff. I just want to get to the NFL, and this poor guy now has to play with those guys again.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a funny situation. Yeah.
All right. I think we're good on Nolan Smith. I think, in terms of going into the night, Zach, if you told us 24 hours ago, I went to your room, shook you awake.
Yeah. Emma would be like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah.
And I said, guess what? The Eagles are going to get Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith. And the only thing they're going to give up is a 2024 fourth round pick, a 2024 fifth round pick, and they're going to move up 28 spots or whatever it is in the third round. I think you would have said, Bo, please get out of my house.
Yeah.
You're scaring my wife.
It's like Roy Kent and Jamie Tarr. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be a spoiler. I'm behind.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Is that from this season?
Yeah.
I'm behind too. No spoilers on the Jets pod. They try to give one too tonight.
Zach.
Yeah, they're talking about some Zava guy. I'm like, I don't even know who that is yet.
Excuse me, please. Yeah,
he went to Syracuse.
Mm.
Yeah, in real life, not in the show. Yeah, if you did that, I would have said, Bo, what are you doing in my house? What are you doing in my room? Right? Where my children sleep? Right? It's from The Godfather, right? But
good reference for you.
Yes,
it's pretty good pop culture.
But I would have said when I walked into the media house tonight, if you said they're getting Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, I would have said you're nuts. Are they giving up next year's first? What are they doing? How are they doing this? Here. How are they doing this? So, so that's great job by the Eagles tonight based on the way I gave them A and A.
It had to be better than their wildest expectations. It's really good. I mean, we'll see how it plays out, but you grade the process. They took Emmanuel Forbes at 16.
We don't need to go through this again. I'm gonna be driving to work tomorrow
I hope he's
and listening.
I hope he's a great kid. That would be nice. But.
I'm gonna be driving to work tomorrow, and I'm gonna listen to this podcast for quality control, and I'm gonna say, wait, did I commit to giving $500 away? What is this? Yeah. So.
Okay. We have two things to get to before we close. First,
seriously, we're doing this again tomorrow night. The Panini thing we can do tomorrow night.
The Panini thing. We have three things to get to.
All right. Marissa and I have the same reaction.
The Panini thing.
My kids are getting up in 2 hours.
The Panini thing, you guys will notice Jordan Davis tweeted, where do I have it here? Tweeted, he had a promoted tweet after he got drafted. It's time to fly with an Eagles logo. I can't wait to get to Philly and get to work. # fly Eagles fly. Check out my first Panini instant rookie card here. Panini NFT rated rookie. And it's got about 1,200 retweets.
Oh, you said Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter, I'm sorry. I probably will make that mistake again, especially this late in the night. Listen, this is my old job. Writing these tweets for these guys after they get drafted, and this is not good enough.
Oh my god, this is the segment.
This is not good enough. We need more team specific engagement. Okay, let's go back to 2016 when your boy was at the controls. Carson Wentz, Philly, let's do this. Can't wait to compete in Eagles green for the best fans in football at Tide NFL, # our colors, # ad. 6,000 retweets.
There you go.
At Tide NFL. Tonight's a celebration. Tomorrow, the real work begins.
It's a good line.
I'm just saying, if you want to throw the big money at me, get a little side job, writing tweets on a draft night, we're open for business. We'll increase those retweets twofold at least.
The irony is you don't tweet on draft night.
What do you mean?
I mean, you're not like putting on information tweeter. Eagles are on the clock.
I'm tweeting.
What's that? You're not like the Eagles are on the clock here. This is what I think they're going to do.
Yeah, because who needs that?
I think most people who are on Twitter, that's what they're if they're on.
They
Twitter
need me to tell them
the
Eagles are on the clock. They don't have 9 other beat writers telling them that. They need to hear it from me.
I just find it funny. The person who's not tweeting during the draft now is assessing the way
I'm tweeting. I'm tweeting about the Cowboys drafting in Motzi.
All right, let's proceed.
Nobody follows me for
I
the
want to
Eagles
keep
are on
my
the
job.
clock. All right. Speaking of why people follow me, let's get to item number 2. We got to update our games, people. Duck Duck Juice, the most prestigious.
Let's just wait till the end of the weekend for this.
No, we have to update it as it goes. Duck Duck Juice. Jimmy with the first pick took edge. That's going to be 7 points for him. Zach, with your first pick, you took defensive tackle. 7 points for you. You and Jimmy are tied atop the leaderboard at Duck Duck Juice. You have cornerback still, wide receiver still, and quarterback. Jimmy has interior offensive line, safety, and specialist. I have running back, tackle, linebacker, and tight end. Well, that will be decided tomorrow. The Owl You Know draft with the first overall pick. Bo took Nolan Smith. With the 4th overall pick, my second pick, Bo took Jalen Carter. 2 for 2 at the top of the Owl You Know draft. That gives me an 8-point lead on you and Shield. You can read who else is available on Daniz's Twitter. And then, Zach, the turkeys to the kingdom. And I'm sorry to say that I'm dusting you here. The Eagles' first pick of the draft will be before 10. We both put 40 turkeys on that. That's a tie. The second pick will be at 30. I had 35 turkeys on that. You had 20 turkeys on that. So a win there for me. The first pick will be which position? Defensive line. I had 51. You had 45. 6 turkeys for me. The second pick will be what position? Defensive line. I had 41. You had 30. Another pickup for me. Big one here. Will the Eagles trade away a 2024 pick during the draft?
I feel bad for Marissa.
95 turkeys for me, 61 for you. You needed to do a better job there. Will the Eagles draft a pair of college teammates? I had 40. You had 35. Another win for me. Will the Eagles draft a player from at least one of Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, or Princeton? 79 for me, 75 for you. 381 turkeys for me, 306 for you. It's getting late early for you, my friend.
It is getting late, that's for sure.
All right.
Out of curiosity, what time did you wake up today?
Which time?
You took a nap?
Of course I took a nap.
Okay.
I knew we were going to be up till 3:30 today. Of course I took a nap.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All
I
right.
got up at 5:40 this morning.
That's a you problem.
It's 3:25.
That's a you
right
problem.
now. I haven't napped.
This is not your first draft.
Okay.
Nor is it your first draft doing these podcasts.
Well,
you should know to prepare. Fail to prepare to fail.
So yeah, okay. You know, I've introduced Marissa in the past as my boss because she's like the senior producer. In essence, you're my boss because like
both of ours.
Yeah, I'm doing as you say.
This is going to be one of the most listened to podcasts of the entire year.
It probably will.
He's
right.
The juice.
He is right with that. The draft pods crush it every year. So.
I agree. I was juiced up to begin. I was ready to roll. It was probably yeah.
Okay. There is one real thing that I would like to discuss.
Okay. I'm happy to discuss it.
The Eagles have 2 picks tomorrow.
Yes. Okay. This is good discussion. Yes.
They are at 62 and 64. The very end of the second round, the very beginning of the third round. Looking at what's available, what do you sort of expect them to do tomorrow?
Yeah, so I expect them to trade back from one of those picks. And the reason I say that is because these picks are so concentrated together, like Bo just said. The pool of players you're considering, the way they draft, I think I think we've discussed this, but teams draft based on tiers, and you say, are they on the same line, right? So there's certain, so you draft horizontally as much as you draft vertically, and I got to imagine that there's going to be a concentrated pool of players on the tier, unless they want to nail 2 of them. It makes more sense to trade back.
Lyft, Uber, test.
Unless they want to draft 2 of them, you're going to trade back. So I think that they trade back from one of those spots, get into day 3.
I bet they trade back from 62, thinking they're
yes,
and then because you probably get a little bit more value.
Exactly.
So you're still going to get a guy. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's my guess. Although I got to say this, I don't go overboard with the, you need to have all these day 3 picks. The reality is once you get to, I think 4th round and to a degree, the 5th round has some value.
I think the 5th round matters.
Yeah. Once you get to the 6th round, it's similar to the pool of players you're considering for the undrafted rookies. Not always, but
I think that's fair. But I also think that would mean if you didn't pick up any, 3rd, 4th, 5th round capital, you essentially have a 4-player draft class.
That's
right?
a good point.
That's not ideal.
Yeah. Now 2 real premium picks, but
sure.
No, I
not
hear
real premium. I mean, 30 is not real premium.
I think they're going to trade back from one of those picks. I would pay attention tomorrow to. I think there's a good group of corners available.
I think corner is the position that really looks to me like there's going to be a sweet spot maybe there for them.
Exactly.
What are you going to say?
The irony to the Emmanuel Forbes thing is like I'm not this huge Emmanuel Forbes guy. I just don't like your distaste for him. I kind of viewed him in the tier of corners as like. And I really like Keely Ringo Keely Ringo's 20 years old, runs, has size, has experience. So
Joey Porter, you expect will probably not be there by then. Keely Ringo, DJ Turner, Cam Smith, Tyreek Stevenson,
Julius
Williams, Julius Brents, Cameron Mitchell, Trey Tomlinson, Clark Phillips, all those guys, some of those guys will appeal to them. Some of them will be available.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'll say is that this is known to be a really good tight end draft class, and only 1 went in the first round tonight.
Yeah,
that's Dalton Kincaid. So there's going to be some tight ends there. I
think there's going to be a little run on those guys early in the second or mid, but maybe not.
Yeah, I don't think the Eagles are gonna double up on D tackle or edge rusher at this point. Pay attention to the possibility of offensive line. I suppose I'm covering all the bases, and then I think the one thing we really didn't get into, you did when you were going through the draft order, was running backs got pushed up the board tonight, right? 2 went in the top 15. And
I don't know that running backs got pushed up the board as much as the Lions just made a bad pick.
True. Okay. But I read one report today that Bijan Robinson's range was thought to be like 8 to 30. I'm like, wow.
Okay, great.
It's a pretty big range, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I read that same one and thought the same thing.
Yeah. So if you thought there was a chance Bijan could fall into the 20s or Gibbs could fall in the second round, that clearly didn't happen. I don't think the Eagles.
Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. You got Tyjae Spears. You got Devin Achane. You got Tank Bigsby. You got Israel Abanikanda.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there are going to be they're gonna have some options.
I think
has Dane put out a mock draft? Like a second round mock draft?
I haven't looked yet.
Yeah.
I think maybe it won't go up until the morning. I think the guy who I think they'd love to get, who I will probably not be there, is Matthew Bergeron, because he hits that tackle guard flexibility. He's like the last guy who could make it there, but I don't think he's going to make it there.
Quick thing on Bergeron, Ben Solak, if you're listening, okay, because I listened to the Philly Special Pod today. It's Syracuse University, not the University of Syracuse. Syracuse University, okay.
That's you.
Just like it's not Chicago University. Or is it Chicago University? I don't know. They don't.
University of Chicago.
No, he didn't go to. I think it's Chicago University, right? There's a UIC and a Chicago University.
I don't know where he went. He went into Chicago.
Okay. But it's Syracuse University. Ben, you do a great job, but Syracuse University. Yeah.
I think wide receiver is also a possibility with maybe the second of those picks. But I'd been saying the thing that I would be pretty surprised if they took defense with their first 3 picks. But I do sort of lean that like corner is the thing that makes the most sense for them tomorrow, and then something on offense, whether that's offensive line or a weapon. So we'll see. Safety, that's the other one. Brian Branch, he's probably not going to be there anymore. And then I don't love taking a safety in the second round just because it's such a wide range of outcomes. Anyway. All right. We made it 90 minutes. I told you before we started, I said this is going to be 90 minutes. We made it 90 minutes. Now we can
I'm ready for like is it dinner part 3 or breakfast part 1?
Yeah.
Now, Zach, let me ask you this
Good question. I don't have a good answer for you there. I was bragging about Marissa today to somebody. And yeah, you time and time again showed why you're
Hey, this is a big
finisher.
night. This is a big night. So big night for the Eagles too. 2 big picks. Happy to be here.
And no Browns picks. So
yeah, no Browns
that
picks.
means...
But Michael was like, of course, another joint practice where they're loading up on players.
That's really funny.
Yeah. It's like, here's Jordan Davis.
That's really funny.
It was
Here's
probably
Jalen
like the
Carter.
8th pick or something. And he's like, he texting me and he's like, I know the Eagles are going to get Jalen Carter. I just know it.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it's like, can't they take that 170-pound guy?
Yeah, he's like, why don't they take the tackle here? Or,
Yeah.
Bijan, he was rooting for that.
Yeah. He needs Emmanuel Forbes. You could pancake Emmanuel Forbes, but
yeah.
So could Marissa.
My belly right now.
All right. My last question to you, Zach. At this time of night, will you get into bed with Emily and risk waking her up, or will you like go to sleep on the couch or something like that?
I'll sleep on the couch. Yeah. I'll sleep on the couch. Yeah. Just because I sleep with the TV on. And I wouldn't want. So John Mulaney has a special out that I've fallen asleep to the past 2 nights.
Okay.
So I probably put that on in the background and probably, I don't know. Invariably every time I put it on. So I mean, she goes to bed much earlier than I do, and so I'll come in. I'll put on the John Mulaney special, and it'll be meant to put me to sleep, but I'll be sitting there listening to it,
be laughing, right?
And then I'll start cracking up. Yeah. And then I wake her up because I'm laughing so hard from John Mulaney cracks me up. So
that's good.
A little insight there,
I look forward to watching it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, what a night for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and a nice slap on the wrist for Johnny Gans. We'll be back tomorrow night, probably right around the same time. So, Zach, if you can, try to work yourself in a nap late morning tomorrow.
Real quick, please read all our coverage on The Athletic. Marissa's done a great job putting it on the bottom of the screen, but you can check it out. Bo and I have grades from every pick. We have templated reactions to every pick. We have best available players for tomorrow. That's going to come up, but we have content for you throughout the day. We'll have more reaction. We'll have reaction from the players, from the coaches, and it's coverage throughout the weekend into next week. So please make sure you check that out.
Yeah, I mean, people call it content. I think it's so good it's pro-tent.
Yeah. And for those who are driving to work tomorrow morning, you can hear me talk about this draft on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Wow. So let's think about
at 8 a.m.
Yeah, let's think about this. For them to have made it through 90 minutes of the podcast before 8 a.m. you're on, that would be impressive. I guess they could be watching
I bet there's
live right
some
now.
sickos that will. We saw a few people that were doing the night shifts. So
if you have listened to this by the time you are listening to Zach on 97.5, please tag us on Twitter with hashtag ZBSicko.
So real quick, funny part to that.
We will read them at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Me and Bo.
Yeah. So we discussed me coming into the studio. But I was like, I'm not going to finish work till 4 a.m. And I think I threw out the 4 a.m. on like the aggressive side, right? I'm going to go to bed after 4. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So, I kind of called my shot there, right? I was like, please check out the Lane Johnson story.
Oh, we didn't even get to
Yeah,
talk
the
about the
athletic
Lane Johnson
and-
story. The Chip
and
Kelly. Why don't we
there's a lot
save
of-
that for tomorrow
Yeah.
night?
And there's a lot of great names in this draft. Check out the name story on
Yes,
the all name team. There was a few laugh out louds. Emily said, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "Bo's name story."
Oh,
Yes.
got a laugh out of you from a comedian, a comedy aficionado such as yourself. Wow,
those categories are great. So,
give me
anyways,
one that you like. That's okay.
Bumper pull.
Bumper pull. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
DJ Turner. Yeah. So
DJ Turner from Marissa's wedding.
Yeah.
That'll do it for this episode of Birds with Friends. We will be back early Saturday morning for Zach and Marissa and Emmanuel. We thank you for listening. We will talk to you later. And as always, we love you.